all seen them in movies and music videos. The Sicarios. These ruthless hitmen are often portrayed as invincible badasses, living a life of luxury and power. Flashy cars, designer clothes, and endless parties. That's the image narco-culture paints for us. But let me tell you, the reality behind the mask is far from glamorous. Life for Sicarios in prison is anything but easy. These hitmen, who once ruled the streets, now face a different kind of struggle. Imagine crowded cells, constant violence, and never-ending surveillance. This is their daily reality. Guards are always watching, making sure everyone knows who's in control. Sicarios, used to being feared, now have to rely on alliances just to get by. Everyday life inside is tough. Inmates often show the scars of their past, both on their bodies and in their minds. Fights break out all the time, turning the yard into a battleground. The psychological stress is huge, with isolation and fear lurking around every corner. For these Sicarios, prison is a brutal wake-up call. The iron bars and concrete walls strip away their old identities, leaving them to face a harsh new reality that's as relentless as the lives they once led. Narco-culture thrives on glorifying the Sicario lifestyle, but this is pure fiction. Let's be honest, a Sicario's life is a constant dance with death. Every day could be their last. The violence they inflict often comes back to haunt them. Their flashy lifestyle is built on a foundation of fear and bloodshed. It's only a matter of time before they get caught or become victims themselves. And even if they manage to avoid getting killed on the streets, there's another brutal reality waiting for them: prison. Now, we're not here to make excuses for these guys. They've made their choices and have to face the consequences. But understanding what pushes someone toward becoming a Sicario is crucial. Poverty, lack of opportunity, and the allure of easy money can trap young people in a cycle of violence. Growing up in desperate situations with limited options, joining a gang can appear like a way out.
Show you how to shoot, how to do everything.
Gangs offer a sense of belonging, a twisted form of family, and a promise of quick cash. However, this path of escape often leads to a life of crime that ends with prison. It's important to delve deeper into the allure of this lifestyle. For some young men, the promise of financial security and a sense of power is intoxicating. Gangs often operate in areas where legitimate opportunities are scarce. They groom young people, offering a sense of community and belonging that might be absent in their lives. The hierarchy and structure of a gang can provide a sense of purpose, a warped sense of family. The danger and violence become normalized, a twisted badge of honor. However, this false sense of security quickly crumbles. The violence they inflict on others inevitably leads to violence against them. The threat of retaliation is ever present, and law enforcement is a constant enemy. Imagine this: 1 minute, you're living large, cruising down the street in a flashy car, surrounded by luxury. Next, you're locked up in a cramped cell, barely bigger than a closet. Gone are the designer clothes and nightclubs. Now, you're surrounded by hardened criminals, some of whom you might have wronged on the streets. The constant threat of violence hangs heavy in the air. That life of power and luxury vanishes overnight, replaced by a daily struggle for survival. This transition from freedom to captivity is a brutal wake-up call. The power they wielded on the streets evaporated behind prison walls. They become targets themselves, vulnerable to revenge attacks from rival gangs or families of their victims. The consequences of their actions become painfully real.
Growing up in a broken family, the circumstances of why my father went to prison that pushed me towards gangs, towards committing crimes.
A Sicario's reputation precedes them into prison, transforming them into marked men constantly looking over their shoulders. The walls that confine them offer little protection from the shadows of their past. Within the prison walls, rival gangs see Sicarios as prime targets. These hitmen represent a threat to their power and control. Imagine a high-ranking member of the Vados Locos gang locked up alongside a notorious Sicario who once worked for the rival Los Diablos. The Vados Locos might see this as an opportunity to eliminate a dangerous enemy, sending a chilling message to anyone who might dare cross them.
Have you ever thought back about them, thought about their families? What were the emotions you were going through?
The families of Sicarios' victims may also seek revenge. Imagine a father whose son was gunned down by a sicario. Learning that the killer is now locked up in the same prison system ignites a burning desire for retribution. These families might attempt to bribe guards, forge alliances with other inmates, or even orchestrate riots within the prison walls to get to their target. The fear of such vengeance hangs heavy over every sicario, a constant reminder of the lives they've taken. Even their own cartel might turn on them. Sicarios often possess sensitive information about their operations and key players. Fearing they might become informants to save themselves, the cartel could order a hit from within the prison walls. The loyalty and trust that might have existed on the streets crumbles behind bars. To survive this brutal environment, Sicarios might be forced to navigate the treacherous waters of prison gang politics. Aligning themselves with a powerful gang can offer a degree of protection. However, it's a double-edged sword.
He pulled out a handgun, told me to kill that person, the one kneeling in front of him. And I just shot him. And he said he was putting me on his payroll. He said, don't worry about it.
Joining a gang exposes them to further criminal activity within the prison walls. They might be pressured to participate in drug trafficking, extortion, or even violence against other inmates. Ultimately, they risk trading one form of danger for another. The decision to join a gang is a desperate gamble, a desperate attempt at survival in a world where death is a constant companion. There are no easy answers, and the consequences can be dire. Trapped within the walls of a prison, a Sicario's world shrinks dramatically. Gone are the days of freedom and control. Now, they face a constant battle against fear and paranoia, a psychological prison far more suffocating than the physical one.
Sometimes female gang members are often subjected to demeaning levels of sexual assault, masked as initiation rituals.
The constant threat of violence hangs heavy in the air. Every glance, every bump in the night fuels their paranoia. They might be targeted by rival gangs seeking revenge, families of their victims yearning for retribution, or even their own cartel fearing they might become informants. This omnipresent fear becomes a mental prison, eroding their sense of security and making it difficult to relax or trust anyone. In some cases, prison authorities might place Sicarios in solitary confinement for their own safety or as punishment for past crimes. While this might offer some physical protection, the psychological toll is immense. Imagine being locked away in a small, windowless cell for 23 hours a day with little human interaction and minimal sensory stimulation.
These assaults escalate, resulting in severe trauma that leaves their mental state in shambles.
For a Sicario already grappling with fear and paranoia, solitary confinement can exacerbate these conditions. The isolation fuels their anxieties, making them even more vulnerable and distrustful. The lack of human interaction can lead to a sense of hopelessness and despair. The psychological effects of constant fear and isolation can be severe. Some Sicarios might develop anxiety disorders, characterized by intense worry and physical symptoms like panic attacks. Others might fall into depression, experiencing feelings of hopelessness and worthlessness. In extreme cases, prolonged isolation can lead to psychosis, a detachment from reality where individuals experience hallucinations and delusions. Dr. Michael Thompson, a criminologist, interviewed for this piece, adds, Sicarios often enter prison with a history of violence and trauma. The harsh prison environment can trigger these past experiences, leading to post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. Symptoms of PTSD can include flashbacks, nightmares, and emotional outbursts. The combination of fear, isolation, and past trauma can create a volatile mix. Some Sicarios might become increasingly aggressive and lash out at guards or other inmates. Others might withdraw entirely, retreating further into their own minds. It's important to acknowledge that not all Sicarios succumb to these psychological effects. Some individuals possess a strong sense of resilience, allowing them to cope with the harsh realities of prison life. However, the support systems available in many prison systems are often inadequate to address the specific needs of Sicarios. The focus on punishment rather than rehabilitation can further hinder their chances of recovery. Providing access to mental health professionals trained to deal with trauma and violence could offer a glimmer of hope for some. However, this remains a challenge in many prison systems. The transition from the streets to prison for a Sicario is a brutal stripping away of not just freedom, but also power and status. the fearsome reputation they cultivated on the outside crumbles within the prison walls.
They kill one of yours, you go looking for one of them. That's how I ended up as a gunslinger or a hitman, well, however you guys want to call it, a sicario. That's how I got involved in gun crimes.
On the streets, sicarios were often feared and respected figures. They wielded power through violence and intimidation. However, prison levels the playing field. Their past deeds hold no currency behind bars. Here, they are simply another inmate, subject to the same rules and regulations as everyone else. This loss of status can be a severe blow to their ego and a source of emotional distress. They might struggle to adjust to the lack of control and the need to follow orders from guards, and possibly even fellow inmates. The sense of invincibility they once possessed evaporates, replaced by a constant vulnerability. The crimes they committed on the streets become a liability within the prison walls. Their past victims or their families might have connections within the prison system, making them prime targets for extortion or revenge. Imagine a sicario who brutally murdered a rival gang member now locked up alongside that member's brother. The threat of retaliation hangs heavy, forcing them to constantly be on guard. Without the power and connections they possessed on the streets, sicarios become vulnerable to exploitation by other inmates. They might be targeted by bullies for their possessions, or coerced into participating in illegal activities within the prison. The black market within prisons thrives on trading basic necessities like cigarettes, food, and even medication. Sicarios, lacking the resources or connections they once had, might struggle to access these necessities and become easy prey for those who control the black market. They might be forced to perform menial tasks or even commit further crimes within the prison walls to survive. The hierarchy within the prison system plays a significant role in this dynamic. Dominant gangs often control access to resources and protection. Ironically, a former sicario might have to seek protection from the very gangs they once rivaled on the streets. However, this comes at a cost. Joining a prison gang exposes them to further criminal activity and undermines any hope of rehabilitation. The loss of status extends beyond respect and power. Sicarios might have enjoyed a life of luxury on the streets, with access to money, expensive clothes, and lavish entertainment. In prison, such luxuries become a distant memory. They are forced to rely on prison rations and limited resources.
I suffer of PTSD, suffer insomnia, lack of emotion sometimes. Sometimes they tell me that I'm very cold. It's something that you can't just let go out of the blue, you know? I think it takes time to understand that you're no longer in that life, you know?
This drastic change in lifestyle can be a source of frustration and despair. The things they once took for granted are now out of reach. This loss further fuels their feelings of powerlessness and underscores the harsh reality of their situation. The walls of a prison create a physical barrier, but for a sicario, they also serve a vital lifeline, connection to the outside world. Their communication with family and loved ones becomes severely restricted, leaving them feeling isolated and forgotten. In prison, communication with the outside world becomes a privilege, not a right. Visits are limited in frequency and duration, often taking place in sterile, controlled environments. Letters are censored, stripping away any details that might be deemed a security risk. Phone calls, if allowed, are monitored, further stifling open communication. Imagine a sicario longing to hear his child's voice or see his mother's face. These simple connections, vital for maintaining emotional well-being, become luxuries behind bars. The frustration and isolation this creates can be overwhelming.
You don't know how to deal with your family. In my case, it's difficult to just try to pretend that all of that stuff has been left behind when it hasn't.
The limited contact with loved ones puts a significant strain on relationships. Family members might struggle to understand the severity of the sicario's situation or feel overwhelmed by the emotional burden. Distance and lack of communication can create a gulf between them. Partnerships might crumble under the weight of separation and uncertainty. The sicario might worry about being abandoned or replaced. These anxieties can lead to jealousy, resentment, and ultimately, the breakdown of relationships. While some prison systems offer programs aimed at rehabilitation and reducing recidivism rates, these opportunities are often limited, and sicarios might not be prioritized. Imagine a young sicario stuck in a dead-end cycle with little hope of ever reintegrating into society. The lack of access to educational or vocational programs can hinder their ability to acquire skills for legitimate future. Without a focus on rehabilitation and reintegration, the prison system becomes a breeding ground for further violence and despair. The sicarios' isolation from the outside world prevents them from making amends for their past or preparing for a future beyond prison walls.
I haven't seen my mom since 17 years. That's the last time I saw her, 17 years ago. So it's been a long ride by myself.
The emotional toll of limited contact with loved ones and the lack of opportunities for growth and rehabilitation can be devastating. Sicarios might lose their sense of purpose and hope for the future. They might withdraw further into themselves, succumbing to depression or resorting to self-destructive behavior. The support of family and loved ones is often a crucial anchor for those navigating the challenges of prison life. Without this anchor, sicarios become vulnerable to the negative influences within the prison walls.
During his time in solitary confinement, he read and wrote a lot. His writing was his way to let out his feelings and helped him get through the horrors of prison life and the challenges of his own mind.
We've explored the harsh realities faced by sicarios within prison walls. However, the situation in Mexico takes this brutality to a whole new level. Mexican prisons are notoriously overcrowded and understaffed. This lack of resources creates fertile ground for gang activity. Imagine a prison cell designed for 2 people, crammed with 10 inmates, tensions running high due to stifling heat and a lack of basic amenities. In this environment, gangs establish control, wielding power through violence and intimidation. Rival gangs vying for territory and control clash within the prison walls, resulting in brutal riots and fatalities. Sicarios, with their violent pasts and gang affiliations, often become pawns in this larger power struggle. A recent article documented a bloody riot in a Mexican prison that erupted over gang control of drug trafficking within the prison walls. The article describes the horrific scene, with several inmates killed and many more injured. Sicarios, mentioned in the article as key players in the violence, were targeted by rival gangs seeking to eliminate the competition. The Mexican government struggles to maintain control over its prison system. Corruption and underfunding plague the system, creating a situation where gangs often operate with impunity. Guards are underpaid and overworked, making them vulnerable to intimidation and bribery by powerful gangs. This lack of control has devastating consequences. Rehabilitation programs and educational opportunities are scarce, leaving inmates with limited options for a positive future. The cycle of violence perpetuates, with prison becoming a breeding ground for hardened criminals rather than a place of reform. The Mexican prison system stands at a crossroads. Overcrowding, gang violence, and limited resources create a volatile environment where sicarios and other inmates face constant threats. Experts fear the situation is only getting worse. El Salvador's prison system is a microcosm of the violence plaguing the country. Designed to house a fraction of its current population, these overcrowded facilities are breeding grounds for gang control and despair. For many inmates, particularly sicarios, hitmen, the hope for rehabilitation or a better future fades within these brutal walls.
It's been years since you last saw the sky. You haven't seen another person or heard a human voice in weeks. All you know now are these walls, just inches away from your face. Slowly, your mind is slipping into madness.
El Salvador's prisons are notorious for overcrowding, often housing double or even triple their intended capacity. This creates a pressure cooker environment where basic necessities like food and hygiene are scarce, and violence erupts readily. A 2020 Reuters video by journalist Gustavo Palmieri offers a harrowing glimpse into these conditions. The camera pans across cramped cells, overflowing with inmates, their faces etched with desperation. Gang symbols are scrawled on the walls, a constant reminder of the power wielded by these criminal organizations within the prison system.
A mega prison that was opened in El Salvador recently, which is designed to hold 40,000 gang members in a single area. And this is the single largest prison in the whole of the world.
It reveals a chilling reality. For many inmates, gang affiliation is not just a choice, but a matter of survival. Reports by Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International paint a grim picture of human rights violations within Salvadoran prisons. Gang violence is rampant, targeting not only rivals, but also sicarios, who may have fallen out of favor or are seen as weaknesses. These brutal acts serve as a public display of dominance and a chilling message to anyone considering defiance.
Has anyone gone on to live a normal life after spending time here? How did a decade in solitary confinement mutilate one inmate beyond recognition?
For Sicarios, El Salvador's prison system offers a particularly bleak future. They are often ostracized by other inmates, feared for their past actions, and targeted by rival gangs seeking revenge. The gang culture that permeates the prisons makes rehabilitation difficult, if not impossible. Educational programs and vocational training, crucial for reintegration into society, are likely inaccessible or overshadowed by the ever-present threat of violence. Imagine Carlos, a former sicario for MS-13, tattooed with gang insignia and haunted by the ghosts of his victims. Thrown into a cell, overflowing with members of Barrio 18, Carlos finds himself a target, not just for his past deeds, but for the information he may possess about MS-13 operations. The constant fear and violence chip away at any hope Carlos might have had for a different life. In the absence of rehabilitation programs, he finds solace in the only familiar structure, another gang, further solidifying his place in the criminal underworld. The situation within El Salvador's prisons is a complex one, demanding a multifaceted approach. Addressing the root causes of gang violence, such as poverty, lack of opportunity, and social disintegration, is crucial to prevent a steady influx of new gang members into the system. Investing in prison infrastructure to reduce overcrowding and improve living conditions is essential for creating a space where rehabilitation can even begin.
You'll be locked up in this tiny cell for the rest of your life. It might sound like a horror movie, but that's how the most dangerous inmates in the United States live at the Administrative Maximum Facility in Florence, Colorado, commonly known as ADX Florence, the most secure prison in the country and possibly the world.
However, the true challenge lies in dismantling the power of gangs within the prison system. This requires strengthening security measures to prevent gang leaders from controlling vital resources and orchestrating violence. Incarcerating gang leaders in separate facilities and creating special wings for vulnerable inmates, like Sicarios, could be a starting point. More importantly, there is a need for robust rehabilitation programs that offer inmates, especially Sicarios, a chance to break free from the cycle of violence. These programs should include psychological counseling to address the trauma they have inflicted and experienced, educational opportunities to develop marketable skills, and vocational training to prepare them for reintegration into society. The story of El Salvador's prison system need not be one of unremitting despair. There are success stories, like Miguel, a former sicario who found redemption through a prison education program. Miguel earned his high school diploma and participated in a mechanics training course. Upon release, he secured a job at a local auto repair shop, finally turning his back on a life of crime. Miguel's story, though perhaps uncommon, serves as a beacon of hope, a testament to the transformative power of rehabilitation. El Salvador's prison system is a stark reflection of the country's struggles with gang violence. While the road to reform is long and arduous, there is a glimmer of hope. By addressing the root causes of gang violence, reducing overcrowding, dismantling gang control, and investing in rehabilitation programs, El Salvador can begin to create a prison system that fosters transformation. Transforming El Salvador's prison system from a breeding ground for violence to a place of rehabilitation requires a multi-pronged approach that tackles not only the gang problem within the prisons, but also the societal issues that feed it.
Thousands of alleged gang members stripped down to expose their tattoos in a brand new mega prison set to house 40,000 inmates.
Gangs like MS-13 and Barrio 18 have a stranglehold on many aspects of prison life, from controlling access to basic necessities to orchestrating violence. Dismantling this power structure is crucial for establishing order and creating a safe environment for rehabilitation. Increasing security measures with improved surveillance technology, well-trained guards, and random cell inspections to disrupt gang activities. Exploring the possibility of separating high-ranking gang members from the general population and placing them in specialized facilities can be a potential solution.
You can say in a way it is, because obviously a lot of the people that I met in the cartels didn't even finish their primary school, because they didn't have the resources to look for a better education.
The current system offers few opportunities for inmates to gain the skills and education necessary to reintegrate into society upon release. Without a path forward, many inmates, especially sicarios with limited options, are likely to return to gang activity. By implementing comprehensive rehabilitation programs that include psychological counseling, educational opportunities, including vocational training and life skills development, and job training programs that partner with local businesses to create employment opportunities for ex-offenders, can overcome the problem. Gang violence is a symptom of deeper societal problems like poverty, lack of opportunity, and social disintegration. Unless these issues are addressed, the prison system will continue to be a revolving door. But by investing in social programs that provide at-risk youth with access to education, job training, and mentorship opportunities, and strengthening community policing initiatives that build trust between residents and law enforcement, can solve the issue. El Salvador's gang problem is not unique. Many countries in Central America struggle with similar issues. International cooperation is crucial for sharing best practices, developing regional strategies to combat gang violence, and creating opportunities for economic development that provides alternatives to gang life. Despite the daunting challenges, there are reasons for optimism. El Salvador has a growing civil society movement advocating for prison reform. International organizations are offering support and expertise. Success stories like Miguel's demonstrate the transformative power of rehabilitation. By acknowledging the gravity of the situation and implementing a comprehensive strategy that tackles the root causes of gang violence, dismantles gang control within prisons, and prioritizes rehabilitation, El Salvador can begin to break the cycle of despair and create a prison system that offers hope for a better future, even for sicarios who have been trapped in a world of violence. The road ahead will not be easy, but with unwavering commitment and a collaborative approach, El Salvador can transform its prison system from a symbol of despair to a beacon of hope.
In 2015, El Salvador's murder rate was over 100 per 100,000 people.
To truly break this cycle, we must go beyond the prison walls and address the root causes that lead young people to become sicarios in the first place. Poverty, lack of opportunity, and a sense of hopelessness are breeding grounds for gang recruitment. Investing in social programs that provide at-risk youth with access to quality education, job training, and mentorship opportunities can offer them a path away from gang life. While El Salvador's prison system faces significant challenges, there are sparks of hope. Mexico, for instance, has implemented programs like Somos Capaces, We Are Capable, which provides inmates with educational opportunities and vocational training, leading to a reported reduction in recidivism rates. El Salvador can learn from these examples and develop its own comprehensive rehabilitation programs, specifically tailored to the needs of sicarios, addressing their past trauma and equipping them with the skills to reintegrate into society. The grim realities of gang violence and the prison system in El Salvador are not isolated issues. Educating yourself about these challenges is the first step towards positive change. Seek out credible sources of information, such as reports by human rights organizations or documentaries that delve into the lives of gang members and ex-offenders. Learn about the work of organizations fighting for prison reform and rehabilitation programs. Advocate for policies that address the root causes of gang violence in your own community. By working together, we can create a world where violence is not the only option even for those who have walked a dark path. Together, we can build a future where hope can penetrate the walls of El Salvador's prisons, offering even Sicarios a chance to break free from the cycle of violence and forge a better future. Sicarios. Their lives in El Salvador's prisons are a chilling reality. But is there a way to break the cycle of violence that feeds them? Let us know in the comments below. What's the most important step we can take to prevent young people from falling into gang life? Thanks for watching this deep dive into the harsh reality of Sicarios' life in prison. If you found this video informative, make sure to give it a thumbs up and share it with others who might be interested. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon so you never miss any of our future content. If you have any thoughts or questions, leave them in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time, stay informed and stay safe.